Audio check 1 2 1 2. Audio check 1 2. Hello, everybody. I am the last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and welcome to our next session of OMNI Draws. We're going to be getting right to work today. I hope you're all doing well, because I am too. I'm doing grand. I'm genuinely excited to get to art today. So, just a very quick little pop in. We're going to just do our little video checks, and this is why we do them. You never know when your webcam refuses to turn on. There we go. Wouldn't be a live stream if we didn't have some technical issues. Hey everybody, good to see you. Alright, well, without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? So, for those of you who are new to Legacy First Flight, I'll quickly take this music, turn it down a little bit because I can see that it's dueling with me. For those of you who are new to Legacy First Flight, let me walk you through the basics. So Legacy First Flight is a fast and light tale in the world of tomorrow. I have been working on this game for an age. We've got ourselves a total of 8 playable species. It is a space opera set roughly 400 years in the future from now, and you play as a Voyager. Voyagers come in many different forms, but long and short, you are adventurers, explorers, those who delve into the dungeons of the deep across the galaxy in search of what are known as relics, which are basically dangerous artifacts, more or less. Let me just rescale that a little bit. There we go. And we're just going to grab the whole page and go down. Okay, so we've been talking about all the player character careers that you start the campaigns with that allow you to start a game with. Legacy is not like D&D with bespoke classes, but instead careers, which represent your starting packages. Different methods of play are locked behind what are referred to as licenses, and licenses can be unlocked with money and experience. Technically, you can start the campaign as a researcher, and all you've done is hack, and you can end the campaign as a mech pilot, gunned up to the teeth with training and negotiation and mediator work. You can do all of that. There's nothing stopping you from doing either, or both. You don't need to re-class. You don't need to multi-class. Any character can build themselves a la carte. It's how the system is designed to work. So, we're going to take a little moment here, and I'm also going to show off a little bit of some of the other stuff I've been doing lately, because I've actually been working on the character sheets. So, today, namely, we're going to be working on AEROSPACECRAFT, because I love AEROSPACECRAFT, they're really fun, and I don't think they show up enough in science fiction. Let me just open this bad boy up. So we have our construct record sheet, which we completed not too long ago. This is basically what you would use to make either an AEROSPACECRAFT or a walker. This is the exact same sheet for both things. They are designed to be modular and work around the same core rule system, which is that you choose a chassis, then you take it and you apply systems to it, you tinker with it, and the final result gets you your mech. And for those of you who are artists, I left a giant spot on the left-hand side for you to draw whatever you want, or just take whatever picture you want and slap that in there. Your business, not mine. Have a fun time. After all, you're allowed to draw and make whatever you want. So, going from that, let's get back to our AEROSPACECRAFT. Now, so far, you'll notice there's no AEROSPACECRAFT on this. That's because this is currently the Walker catalog, but we're about to save this, actually, for aerospace work. This is going to be the final aerospace catalog. Okay, so AEROSPACECRAFT and Legacy work a little differently than the mechs do. Not entirely. They use the same core rule system, but they have a couple of unique traits that are applied on top of them. So, let me show you guys a couple of doodles. This is some really old stuff. I haven't drawn AEROSPACECRAFT in a hot minute. This is some of the quick doodles of what I had to go with. So, and if I can open this up very quickly and also get the core rules book open, I will show you guys what we're going to be drawing today. So AEROSPACECRAFT come in many different forms, but the long and short of them, it really comes down to their function. So you have, out of those options, as opposed to the, I believe, 6 walker types, for AEROSPACECRAFT instead, you have a very fixed number of them. Instead, aerospace chassis, I believe you have a total of... Yeah, it should be just 4 of them, I believe? Yeah. Let me just make sure I got that right. Interceptors, gunships, skiffs, and landers. Yep, that's right. Okay. So those are your 4 real, like, aerospace types. So landers are exactly what they sound like. They're long-haul truck craft. Basically, you'd pilot this thing if you want to be the carry gear person. They also sort of act a little bit like dropships as well. So if you want to carry your party back and forth, this is your rugged Toyota pickup. This is the thing that does its job. And of course, the second I open my window to enjoy a little breeze, one of my neighbors decides to come out and start smoking right outside my window. Give me a moment. I want to breathe. There we go. Let's turn the AC on to get that going. I love my neighbors. I love New England. I don't know why everyone smokes up here. It drives me nuts. So, anyway. Landers are kind of the rugged, durable craft. Their whole shtick is that these things can land up and down through the gravity well. They're not super nimble. They're actually probably the clumsiest craft you can pilot at Mach. However, they have the highest carrying capacity. And they also can carry, I believe, the most systems. So we're going to open up our rules system here. This is actually one of the sort of like demo documents I've been using for the beta that I've been running with my players. The closed, I guess technically it's a closed alpha. So let's zoom in. So, as far as our aerospace craft go, we're first starting with the Galapagos. So the Galapagos is exactly what it sounds like. Solid modularity, which is the number of systems it can take, which in this case is 4. So that's up to 4 guns, 4 like robotic arms, 4 like reactors or extra boosters or shield generators or whatever else you could think of. Cargo modules, take your pick. They have pretty solid reactor usage because they're basically, well, they're durable. They're built to last and to work in various environments. They have a pretty rugged frame. Their system integrity, which is basically like how much HP they have, is pretty high. 60. These things can get the shit kicked out of them. Their armor is pretty good. Their stability is really high, so they can carry the heaviest equipment and weaponry, or some of them anyway. And their speed is not terrible. They are, like all aerospace craft, they have fly and the Mach keyword. The Mach keyword is interesting. So, walkers tend to exist on the battlefields that we'll be encountering them on, kind of like, well, really, like another character. They're basically just a bigger version of you and me on the battlefield, with bigger guns and bigger armor. But aerospace craft aren't quite the same. They hover around. They can strafe, float around like a helicopter maybe, or a drone, but their big trick is they have the Mach keyword, and as flyers, basically this means they can leave the battlefield as it is and circle around, pushing at supersonic speed. This allows them to dogfight, basically. So aerospace craft can only, basically they can hover around and sort of just get shot at by normal people on foot as per usual, which is kind of a dangerous thing for them. Or they can go to Mach, leave a battlefield, loop around, and deal with other anti-air or aerospace assets around the area, which opens up a whole sort of like side minigame. Those of you who've played games such as, like, say, I don't know, Shadowrun or Cyberpunk Red, when you get into hacking and you do your own little side minigame and everyone else is kind of playing the normal game, it isn't quite that extreme, but in this particular instance, aerospace craft literally zoom off of the battlefield, and then at the start of the turn, they do a little dogfighting minigame where they decide who gets the angle to get behind someone else. Can they successfully line up their shots and get their attacks in, or do they get driven off? And so this sort of gives you this really interesting dynamic of aerospace craft can be really fast, really nimble, hit really hard, but the big trick is, can they stick around, or are they forced to disappear from the battlefield for periods of time? Walkers are an anchor of the battlefield. Aerospace craft are cavalry, and they are treated like cavalry. They do big wheeling actions that come back around again. So, whenever you see Mach, the Mach value is how fast they can go, namely in this instance, when they're off of the battlefield, which acts like a modifier for how well they can dogfight, but also on top of that, how long they can stay at Mach speed before they have to either decide to return to the battlefield and sort of place themselves back on to be shot normally by just anybody with a gun, or loop off and actually break off from the fight and take a number of rounds to return completely. You're moving at supersonic speeds after all. You're not going to be really present on the table. It's very hard to really depict that in a way that makes sense. Everybody who's out there who's played tabletop war games knows exactly what I'm talking about. Aircraft, conceptually in a miniature war game, are really cool, but unless it has a ludicrously tiny scale or a colossally huge table, you will inevitably have your airplane just zoom off the battlefield at some point. And in Legacy, we handle that by basically saying, okay, are you either making strafing runs and then dealing with enemies shooting you off the table, or are you hovering around like a helicopter and exposing yourself to greater risk? You can choose to do either. So, that gives you a general idea. So we have our Galapagos, which I will pop back over here. And the Galapagos is actually the one that is, it's right here, actually. Hold on. I said right here, like it's right in front of us. This is my old doodle of the Galapagos. I'm going to be doing a new one today. It's basically a pickup truck. It's an aerospace pickup truck. Really stumpy little guy. We're going to be working on a better doodle of it today. So the next one that we have that we'll be working on is going to be the Cricket. So the Cricket is a skiff. Skiffs are the fastest of aerospace craft. They loop around at high speed. Their Mach value, I should say one of the fastest anyway. Their Mach value is ludicrously high, Mach 4. This means these little guys are great blockade runners. They are nimble, fast, they can stay at Mach for a really long period of time. They're surprisingly good at dogfighting, actually, as a result. They have really good handling, and they're really hard to hit even when they're just hovering. But they have some of the most limited structural integrity, so they can get shot out of the sky like that. Their armor is almost non-existent. Their reactors are okay, because they don't usually have a lot of systems attached. This is where that system modularity you can see right here comes in. That's how many of those super cool, awesome, like, system blocks right here you can fill up with guns and gear and all that fun stuff. Because they can only take 2, it means that they don't really burn through reactor energy nearly as much. So their recharge is pretty high, actually, and their capacity is pretty high too. But the trade-off is they have almost no base transport capacity. They have a 1 pilot and 5 transport slots, so you can take 6 people total if you include the pilot, or a single walker strapped to the back. Basically the equivalent of putting your Christmas tree on top of the roof by using rope, more or less. Which sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but considering that most player teams usually run between anywhere from 4 to 6, although, there's nothing saying you can't have a really small Voyager team, it means that you're less likely to be evacuating whole squads out with this thing, or really doing a lot of heavy lifting with it. So, the Cricket. That is... The last time I doodled it was this little thing. I kind of like parts of the design, but we're gonna futz with it a little bit. All these are in landing mode, by the way, so these limbs literally retract in the case of these back ones. They actually become the back engines. So we're going to be redesigning those a little bit. So the next one is the Falsetto. The Falsetto is a gunship. Gunships are exactly what they sound like. It is your helicopter. It is your Apache. It's the Pelican from... honestly, it is really the Pelican from, like, Halo, more or less. They have even less slots than the Skiff does for transport, but they have significantly more modularity. 5, the highest amount of modularity you can put on any craft that flies in the air. I think even more than the landers have. They're really rugged. Their defense is okay. Their pace is pretty good. They can go at Mach 2, so that means they can actually dogfight relatively well. And their armor and stability are very good. These things are made to brawl. They have the highest possible system damage they can take, which is 80, which, again, this is a game where everything has damage reduction. So in this case, it's a machine that has damage reduction, a really high health pool, and solid armor, and a crazy amount of guns. Gunships can dogfight, but really what they want to do is park themselves over a battlefield, just open up with their cannons. So there you go, the Falsetto. That's going to be the next one. I'm going to redesign this one a little bit. I don't like the way it looks. The funny thing is, I actually designed this before Dune came out. It's really funny that it turned out Dune was like, oh yeah, that looks similar, and I'm like, okay, yeah. There's a lot of parallel evolution visually for me, and it's kind of agonizing. This is one of the reasons I also wanted to get Legacy done, so I could stop doing the whole, like, is that from Dune? Is that from Avatar? No, God damn it, I've been making this stuff for 20 years, It's just tropes. And the final one is actually going to be our aerospace superiority craft, or an interceptor, as it would be called more commonly. So interceptors are the best dogfighters in the game. And I say that because, not necessarily because they're like the fastest, they actually are Mach 3. Technically, a skiff goes faster than they do. And they can dogfight for longer than an aerospace superiority craft can. The difference is aerospace superiority craft have 3 system slots, so they can mount extra weapons and equipment. Solid, like an okay amount of system integrity. 40 system damage is, you know, better than the skiff, which is basically just like a Porsche in the sky, more or less. Their armor, the defense is okay. Their stability is not that great. But what they really have is the fact that these things are ludicrously fast, very smart, and have a pretty good reactor capacity. These things can go at very high speeds, bring a stunning amount of weapons to bear, and shoot enemies out of the sky. They are meant to act exactly like they sound like. Aerospace superiority craft. They are interceptors. They see other flyers and go, mine, and they hunt them down. Skiffs are blockade runners. They don't want none of your smoke. They just want to blast on by and not be bothered. Aerospace superiority craft, on the other hand, they want that fight. They really want that fight. This is actually a doodle I did of the aerospace superiority craft that we're going to have in the core launch game, which is known as the Razorwind. So that's the colloquial name. The current name is, yeah, actually it is, the Razorwind Phase 98 Aerospace Superiority Chassis. So this thing is fast, nimble, it hovers, it brings so many guns to bear. The biggest trade-off is simple. It has, like, no transport slots. At all. This thing can't even bring a mech with it. It has a pilot and one person can ride tandem behind them. So you are really going for the Top Gun experience if you go for an aerospace superiority craft, if you go for an interceptor. So these are the 4 classes that we're going with today. And we're going to sort of just doodle with them, have some fun with it. We're going to see what we can make and how well we can make it. And also, for those of you who are watching, I'm going to extend an invitation. Please make sure you're drinking. Because, boy, I was thirsty. Alright. Let's get to doodling. So I'm thinking today we're going to start off with probably the one mech, or the one, like, aerospace craft I really haven't drawn that much. And that would actually be probably the Cricket. I really like the Cricket conceptually, but I haven't drawn it, like, ever. So we're going to go in here, we're going to literally pop in, and I'm just going to add a new layer onto here. Here we go. We're going to drop the opacity on this really low, and we're going to go through and do this with all these different layers. These are basically all the craft that I've done stuff with in the past. These are all the walkers and such. And we're just going to drop them really low. Bring that to 12, because that'll be a good guide for how to use my black and white outlining technique, just to make something that goes really fast. And we have the hexapod, which we started doodling already from the last session, which is still coming along nicely. Cool. We can turn each of these off and go in sequence. So our first one here that we're going to doodle, the first one here, I should say, is going to be the Galapagos. Brother. So the Galapagos lander, the next is the Vassal that we have here, and this is going to be the Cricket. Cool. Alright, so let's write out some stuff here. So make sure I got all this data correct. Here we go. We can paste that right in there without formats. Beautiful. And this is actually a human tech base. This thing is actually made, as I recall. Actually, no. This is Orname. This is an Orname tech base. The human tech base is the Galapagos. Orname. So our lovely jelly babies here. This is a skiff. And we can get to our doodling now. take that off, and we're going to add a new layer, and this is going to be the skiff layer. Hold on. Brother in Christ. Okay, fine. We're just going to delete it that way. I don't know why it's not responding to commands. There we go. Alright. So, the cricket itself is inspired by, like, really tiny, nimble, almost like sprinting craft, basically. These things are made to blast past enemy opposition and hopefully not get shot, is kind of the hope. By kind of, I mean it is the hope. It's the desperate hope of anyone who's piloting these things that nobody, like, can actually get a beat on them in time to hurt them. So, my first thought was, if we're going to go with references, we're going to go with things such as, for example, like, the craft that they have in, what's the name of that one movie with the Tet? It's going to bug the crud out of me now. Tom Cruise, the Tet. Oblivion, that's what it is. There's like one particular like thing there, like it's like a little aircraft lander they have. Yeah, here we go. This is what I was thinking. The bubble ship. This is kind of like the same sort of inspiration of what I was thinking of. If we zoom in here. Nice. Looks like Marathon finished downloading. Can you tell I'm interested? So yeah, like this sort of rounded aesthetic, this really kind of fast thing. This is a little bit too small though. We want something that's bigger. The skiff is small, and it is like largely a single craft, but it does have a small body behind it. So we're going to sort of run with this. This is also an Oraname design, and I've only designed so many things for Oraname tech-wise anyway. So I'm going to, let's pop in and have a little fun with it. I'm also going to very quickly take a look and see, should be in the hard suit section. Yes, that's right. It is in art assets that I did this. There we go. And should be in Stellar Forge, Careers. Cool. So this is the only other Oraname thing I've ever designed so far. This hard suit. They have this very, like, slightly rounded but stumpy, thick design scheme. Kind of everything is built to be a submersible or a bathysphere for them because they're an aquatic species. So they're kind of built around that. So that's sort of what we're going with here, aesthetically speaking. I'm going to keep an eye on those two on the side. Let's get our doodle on. First, we're going to take a base layer. Something not too insane, but just like to block things out. Kind of want to go with that, like, same sort of... Ooh, hold on. That's a little better. Kind of want to go with, like, that same sort of rounded shape to it a little bit. So we're going to have this larger front compartment here. Behind it, we're going to have the actual, like, landing compartment where, like, actual gear and stuff lives. So we're going to sort of pull this back a little bit. Kind of want to bring this up a little higher, maybe. That might work. Okay, yeah, that'll do. Alright, so next we're going to have our engines, which will start around here. We're going to have that sort of come back a little bit. I'm going to give this thing wings. I'm not going to even like super huge wings, but I want this thing to have like a tail at very least in order to keep it stable. Okay. That feels alright. Nice. We're going to have our engines coming off the back. I'm going to have the spine sort of go all the way out here. Okay. We're going to have two sort of like landings, like limbs here that are retractable. Probably like actual gear nodes as well. So I kind of like the idea that they sort of fold back when they're in flight. There we are. As far as the engines go, we're going to go for something that's a little less human designed. The prior version of the Cricket was actually designed back before I added a bunch of different species to Legacy. And its design, while pretty, like, robust, is very human in its, like, scheme. It uses the same kind of engine pods that you'll see on other things. Instead, I'm going to go with kind of a little bit of a slightly looser design here. Kind of like the idea of, like, the engines being almost orbs, a little bit. So we're not going to go completely with the bubble ship design that's in Oblivion, but I do want to throw a little homage to it. So we'll have the engines have like smaller exhaust here. Okay. So that gives us a pretty good look. I kind of like the way that it looks, but there's something else missing. I feel like I want to give this thing an antenna. After all, it is the Cricket, right? That feels pretty good. Okay, that gives us a pretty good look to this thing. Let's start doodling out some more shapes on it, eh? Okay, so we're going to rotate this around. I'm going to start sort of filling in some shapes here with a darker shade of... we'll go with the lighter shade here, I guess. Yeah, we'll do that. Want it to be slightly brighter than that. And I'd like it to be a brush that will actually show up as. Thank you very much. Here we go. Kind of like the idea of this sort of coming back here like this. Here we go. So now we've got this nice sort of shape to the front. It's a little more nimble. Let's get these engine pods here. Start getting some shape and some visual, like, actual sort of definition going. Here we go. Now, right now, it's bright as all hell out. In case you couldn't tell from the fact that I'm washed out beyond all reason. Not washed up, washed out. The sun is not kind to my pale Hispanic tanness. I look parchment white in this. Here we go. Nice. Okay, then we can get in here. Pull that along. Cool. And then we can just take the actual wings here and sort of get the little, like, the parts that are very clearly going to be facing up where the light is a little brighter. So this gives us a pretty good look. I actually like the way this thing looks now a little more. I always thought that the Cricket didn't really look fast enough, in my opinion. Now, that is a quick-looking craft. Cool. And we're going to have our two turrets here. And I'll just give like a little extra definition on the underside of the hull, sort of clear out where the paneling is going to be. Cool. Let's get in here with a slightly darker shade. Nice. Alright, that feels pretty good. Okay, so we got a general shape down. Let's get the rest of this. And we're just cleaning up some edges here. Nice. Alright, let's add some more highlights. Okay. That should work. And here we go. Go. We're gonna just put this here, sort of get another little detail area for turrets or systems to just sort of hang out. There we go. We get our little like under section paneling here. Beautiful. A little more rounded there. That's a little better. Okay, now we're going to get the back wings here. The stabilizers. That's the word I was looking for, stabilizer. This whole time I've been like, wings, wings. No, it's a stabilizer. Wings imply lift. These things aren't really for lift, they're for control. Could they provide lift? Sure, I'm certain. It is a wing-like shape. After a certain speed, everything provides lift if it's exposed to wind. But that's not their purpose here. Our purpose here is to make sure this thing flies straight when it's hurtling around on a rocket ride. And then we can sort of just take this part here, pull that back, and then we can give our little antenna a little bit of light. Just very quickly, we got ourselves a pretty decent shape, dare I say. I'm kind of liking that. The thing looks very alien, but it looks fast, which is what I'm aiming for here. Given this thing is an Oraname machine, it's designed to go in deep sea, so we're probably going to go with like a similar scanning array like this thing has. This is an Oraname hardsuit, as I mentioned earlier, and it doesn't really have like a big open like face. Most hardsuits are like fully enclosed, but its face is very simple. It's very like efficient by its design. It's basically just a bunch of scanners and a metal dome. So we're probably going to do the same thing here. Instead, this thing will probably have a series of scanners along its periphery. And then on the front, we would have one singular one. And it'll probably have like a little tiny like sub-scanner beneath it. There we go. That works. And we'll give it one above as well, so it can detect things that are above it. So skips, if anything, are kind of the blockade runners. Their whole shtick is to be like ludicrously fast. I kind of like the idea of giving this thing venting. Let's see how that would look. Put that at 75. Okay. And give that thing kind of that right there, sort of cap that off. That does not look that bad, actually. I kind of like that shape we put in there. That can work. So yeah, we'll do that. We're going to flip this around, put this into the highlights. And wherever light would probably make sense to put, which is usually the bottom of any, like, highlights or divots, we'll put that there. And then this one is kind of hard to gauge. I guess that would be where the light would reflect. Alright. So we got a pretty good look here for this thing. So fast, nimble, designed to evade capture. Yeah, that feels pretty good. We're going to go with that. Now, folks, I'm probably going to have to bail. I know, really short stream today. I was hoping to make it go a little longer, but you know, I'll add a little detail to this thing before I bounce off. I'm not going to have a chance to do more than one of these. But long and short, these things are designed to be customized, they're designed to work really fast, and I'm really excited with how that turned out. Let's add a little extra color to it, shall we? Or at very least, let's add some light. Some glow effects tend to make things look pretty good. Alright, here's where we can start getting in and really having a little fun. So anywhere there's sensors, I'm going to reach in, put a little bit of light. Nice, nice. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing here. And then we can go in and do the same thing. And this is what I like to call depth of lighting. Whenever you have a light coming out of a diode or something, usually it's not like coming out of the surface of the glass. It's coming out from behind the paneling of glass. So showing how deep in the glass the light is tends to only help the design. It makes it look brighter and more vivid. Now, AEROSPACECRAFT, like I said, will be part of the launch of Legacy First Flight, as each of these 6 playable, careers that you can begin the campaign as will each have their own starting packages, per se. And as a jockey, you can start right off with an AEROSPACECRAFT. In fact, I believe that the skiff is one of the cheapest options you can begin with. So if you want to start your career in Legacy and kick it off going as some kind of Top Gun-esque pilot, you absolutely can. It is genuinely a blast. Alright, here we go. Gonna add a little extra light in here. Nice. I'm gonna put one of these little things in here. I tend to put little lights occasionally here and there where there's where there might be gravity assistance or something. Beautiful. And then I'll put a little bit of light peeking out from inside here. Show where the reactors on this thing are. So again, the particle reactors in Legacy that everyone gets their energy from, also called Grenda reactors, they're kind of like supercharged steam engines, and as a result, they tend to glow really brightly, generate a large amount of electricity and electromagnetic energy. So wherever they are, they literally will glow from the inside. It'll be almost like someone stuck a glow stick into the interior of a car. Have you ever seen a car where it incandesces from heat? These things don't incandesce from heat, but they let off a very strong aura of Cherenkov radiation, which is the blue radiation you see, the ionizing radiation that you'll see around the interior of a nuclear reactor where it hits the water. In this case, it creates a Cherenkov radiation effect on the metal of the actual casing of the reactor. The reactor's not emitting any beta or alpha or gamma waves or anything, but it is emitting light because of how reactive everything inside of it is. Fun little details for you guys. That's why I draw things the way I do. Plus, I feel like having glowy stuff is always a good thing in science fiction. It isn't necessary, but call me a Tron Legacy aestheticist, but that's kind of my shtick is, hey, you want to make something look cool in sci-fi? Have it glow a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit, you know? Just a hair. We'll make this the strongest glow here by giving it the most presence. Very nice. I'm just gonna hit the interior of this a little bit, sort of go oh hey, there's a little bit of ambient lighting coming off of the reactor here. From a distance, it should look pretty good. Alright. Yeah, not too bad. If I wanted to, I could hit the whole thing with a glow like that, but I don't think it's necessary. I think the subtle glow... Oof, pardon. I think the subtle glow actually works pretty well to our advantage here. And just like that, we have ourselves an AEROSPACECRAFT. Namely, the Cricket. So, folks, I appreciate you all jumping on, spending time with me. That was a pretty fast stream, but it did its job, and we managed to get everything we wanted. So, we have ourselves an AEROSPACECRAFT. I can really tool this up a little bit. I want to have, at very least for each aerospace and each walker, like a quick, like, sketch that's next to the actual section of the book, so folks can know what they're purchasing. Get in their head like, oh, this is what it looks like. And have some internal, like, aesthetics to how stuff looks. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Huge thank you, as always, to my amazing patrons. At Tier 1, Ampersand and Atlas, thank you guys so much. At Tier 2, Necronomus and Souls Rolls, you guys are amazing. And at Tier 3, my epic ironclad allies, Mossy the Mighty and Heinrich the Heroic. You guys truly do keep things afloat. If you guys want to jump on my Patreon, patreon.com/thelastomnitech, you'll get access to all my webcomics, which is over a year of Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist, my Helldivers 2 webcomic, as well as also Brothers, A Tale of Treachery and Doom, which is my Grimdark Future webcomic that I have kind of had on hiatus, but it's still up for total reading for you guys, as well as also behind-the-scenes peeks at my art, TTRPG work, and my schedules for when I broadcast every week. You can jump on there, and you don't even need to actually become patrons to gain benefit of it. Just being a free member will do fine. But if you want to help keep our lights on and help me make more art, as well as also, like, help me make this TTRPG game, Legacy First Flight is 20 years in development, and we're making a huge push to get it into your hands this year. And by we, I mean me, because I'm poor and I have to do this all by myself. You will get, one, a supporter's credit inside the core book when it's finally released, and also my undying appreciation. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one, and I'll see you out there, Voyagers. Peace.